Drugs are eliminated from the body either by excretion or by a process called metabolism. Different individuals can have different drug metabolism status, which can influence the plasma concentrations achieved after a standard dose. So, for example, some people might eliminate the drug slowly from the body, and that can lead to excessively elevated drug concentrations. And potentially, this poor metabolism can increase the risk of adverse events. In contrast, sometimes people rapidly eliminate the drug from the body by drug metabolism, and then that can lead to very low concentrations and potentially decrease the effectiveness of that medicine. There are many different enzymes involved in the biotransformation of drug molecules into pharmacologically inactive medicines. And regardless of which enzyme is involved, the drug metabolizing enzyme activity in our body is influenced by both genetic, inherited factors, and also by our environment. So let's first think a little bit about the genetics. Well, we've all inherited our poor metabolizer status from our parents, and that is because of something called genetic polymorphism, which is simply variation in the gene code between individuals. So remember, we get one copy of a gene from each parent, and we end up with a number of different possible inherited drug metabolizer traits in people. So, for example, if a person's inherited two no-function genes, one from each parent, they will then have what's called a poor metabolizer trait. We also can have the opposite effect, where we can inherit increased function genes from our parents. And depending on the number of copies we've inherited, we can have either ultra rapid metabolizer status or a rapid metabolizer status. Now, all of this is important on an individual level. But we also have to think about the inherited status that we all have from our ancestors. Because over many, many generations, we've ended up with a different prevalence of inherited drug metabolizer status across the different regions of the world. And one example of this is the enzyme CYP2C19, where inherited poor metabolizer status occurs in about 20% of people of East Asian ancestry and about 3% of people of Northern European ancestry. So this is all about our genetic differences, but what about environmental differences? So, again, looking across the world, it's important to think about our ethnic differences, particularly the cultural differences in our diet, because we all eat different foods, we might use herbs and spices in different ways, and we drink different beverages. And these dietary differences can cause changes in drug metabolism because there are naturally occurring biochemical molecules that occur in certain foods. These are sometimes called polyphenols, and these molecules can either compete with the drug for its metabolism or increase how efficiently the gene for that drug metabolizing enzyme is produced, and which is a process called induction. And two well-studied examples of this are the effect of grapefruit juice and the effect of vegetables like broccoli and cabbage, which are all known to alter that person's ability to metabolize drugs. But there's another ethnicity factor that we need to remember, and that's that we all have different cultural practices when it comes to the use of alternative medications, whether that's herbal medicines or traditional medicines. And one good example of this is the use of St. John's wort as a herbal medication, because these alternative medications have also been shown to alter the ability of a person to metabolize drugs. So, the key thing to remember is that across the world, there is a huge diversity in drug metabolism status in each individual person. And some of that is due to our inherited differences, and some of that is due to ethnic differences in our cultural environment. But this means that in each individual person, there may be very subtle differences in enzyme activity or very substantial differences. And sometimes these differences can influence the safety and effectiveness of medicines. Thank you.